everybody, I'm Nikki Sizemore, and today I'm taking over the Feedfeed Snapchat. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a food writer, a recipe developer. I have a cookbook, the Food Processor Family Cookbook. It's a mouthful. I also have a blog called From Scratch Fast. My mission is to help busy families get made from scratch meals on the table any night of the week. I'm the mom of 2 small girls. I've got a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I know how hard it can be to get dinner on the table every night, so I offer recipes and tips and techniques. Oh, and I also should mention that all of my recipes just happen to be gluten-free because I can't eat gluten. I'm also on Instagram at SizeMoreNikki, and that's the same handle for Snapchat, by the way. Lots of food, mostly food. And then on Facebook at From Scratch Fast, and I feature recipes and tips and videos and all sorts of little things, so come check it out. Okay, enough about me. Today I'm going to be making these chocolate coconut ice cream sandwiches, which happen to be gluten-free and vegan. I originally made these ice cream sandwiches for a party we had for the 4th of July a couple of years ago, and I made them just for the kids. I made something fancy for the adults. Big mistake! All of the adults wanted the ice cream sandwiches too, and we ended up just stealing them from our kids. So I make these like a dozen times a summer, and they're so easy. So here are the ingredients for the cookies. We're gonna use almond flour, coconut flour, raw cacao powder. You could also use a good quality cocoa powder, baking soda, salt, cinnamon, coconut oil, maple syrup, vanilla extract, and some chopped dark chocolate. I like to use a scale when I bake. I'm definitely more on the spectrum of a cook rather than a baker, and a scale just makes things so much easier. Oh, and before I forget, this recipe is currently on my blog if you want to get the exact ingredients, but I'll share them with you later as well. I'm going to start with my almond flour. I need 3 ounces of almond flour, which is about 2/3 of a cup lightly packed almond flour. I reset my scale to 0, and now I'm going to add the coconut flour, and I need only 1.5 ounces of coconut flour. Now for the cacao powder, I need 3 tablespoons. It's about 0.6 ounces. Sorry for the delay. I'm having some technical issues with my phone. Okay, a teaspoon of baking soda. We have 1/2 teaspoon of fine sea salt. And then finally, 1/8 teaspoon of cinnamon. You won't really taste the cinnamon, but it'll add some depth of flavor and give the cookies a little bit of that spicy warmth. Now I'm just gonna whisk this all together until it's nice and evenly combined. Now for the wet ingredients. And one of the reasons this cookie dough is so easy is everything just gets dumped into the same bowl, so you don't have to clean 2 bowls. So we have 1/2 cup of coconut. That was 1/2 cup of coconut oil. Now 1/2 cup of maple syrup. I like to buy the dark maple syrup. It's just got more flavor. And then last but not least, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and I'm just gonna eyeball it. All right, give this a whisk. I'm gonna go and pop this in the fridge for 5 minutes. You just wanna give the batter a little bit of time so the flour can absorb all that liquid. In the meantime, we'll chop some chocolate. Give the cookies a little more chocolate flavor because I love chocolate. I'm gonna add a bar of dark chocolate. It's 3.5 ounces of dark chocolate. I'm just using green and blacks, 70%. When I chop chocolate, I like to use a serrated knife. It just makes it really easy to just work your. So I ran my knife in this direction, and now I'm gonna go back and just give it a chop so that we get nice chunks. You could certainly use chocolate chips instead, but you see how when you chop it up, you get some really fine bits and then some bigger chunks. I love how the fine bits melt into the cookie and the bigger chunks just kind of stay intact. All right, this one's for me. I just took my batter out of the fridge, and you can see how firm it's gotten. I just gave it a stir. So now I'm just gonna fold in all this chocolate. Okay, I've lined some sheet pans with parchment paper, and now I'm gonna scoop out my dough onto the parchment paper. A mini ice cream scoop is a great tool for this job, but you're aiming for about heaping tablespoon sized mounds. I'm just gonna flatten them. All right, all my batter has been scooped. The trays are full. Time to put these girls in the oven. In they go for 5 minutes. It's almost been 5 minutes, and it already smells so good in here. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes. The cookies aren't done yet, but I pulled them out of the oven to rotate the pans. And I'm gonna do one more thing. You see how there's still these little mounds? Sometimes the cookies will flatten out completely. Sometimes they stay in this mounds. It depends on the freshness of your flour. If they're still in these mounds, it's an easy fix. If you were gonna eat these just as cookies, you could just leave them as mounds, no big deal. But since we're gonna make ice cream sandwiches, you wanna take a metal spatula and flatten them. Just be sure to wipe the spatula clean as you go so it doesn't stick. And by the way, it's taking all my willpower not to lick that right now. I flattened out all of my cookies, and if one does happen to fall apart, don't worry about it. Just plop it back together again. They're still raw, so they'll still bake up. All right, these are going back in the oven for about 5 to 6 more minutes. It's been 6 minutes, and it's time to pull them out. All right, I'm just gonna set the pans on some cooling racks and let the cookies sit on the cookie sheets for 5 minutes to cool slightly. It's been 5 minutes, and now I'm transferring the cookies to a cooling rack. A fish spatula works great for this. You want something pretty thin. As you want to get under the cookies. They're still really delicate and soft at this point. So a fish spatula is a great tool. Now, before we can stuff these with ice cream, we need to let these cool. And to expedite that process, I'm gonna throw this whole cooling rack in the freezer. So I'm gonna pop these in the freezer. It should only take about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll be ready to assemble our sandwiches. While the cookies cool, I'm just gonna pull out my ice cream so it can start to soften up. Now I'm using coconut ice cream. It's actually a vegan ice cream. You can really use any ice cream flavor you like, but I love the coconut flavor with the coconut in the cookies. It's really delicious, and the cookies are slightly salty. Vanilla is great too. The cookies are all nice and firm now. They're chilled, so it's time to fill them. Now what I like to do is just line up equal-sized cookies. That way you'll get an ice cream sandwich with an equal top and an equal bottom. Also, as you start to pull them off, if they stick, if some of that chocolate is melted, just use your spatula. Now I am just scooping on my ice cream. You'll need about 1.5 pints of ice cream or so. Okay, it's time to top them off. So just put on the top cookie and give it a slight press just to adhere. Oh, and I forgot to mention that I had put down a piece of wax paper before starting, just to keep my work surface clean. Oh man, the ice cream sandwiches are done, but I'm gonna throw them back in the freezer just for a few minutes to firm up. One thing that's great about these ice cream sandwiches is you can make them well in advance. So after they firm up a little bit in the freezer, you can either put them into a Tupperware and freeze them, or you can wrap them individually in pieces of wax paper and then pop them into a large zip top bag. It's perfect for parties and potlucks and things like that. All right, the ice cream sandwiches are out of the freezer, and I think it's time to give it a taste. These are still like my favorite summertime dessert, and they're so simple. The cookies stay slightly soft in the freezer, and they're a little salty. It's time for me to sign off. Thank you so much for letting me cook with you today. I really hope you'll come find me on Snapchat. I'm at SizeMoreNikki. Here's to many delicious summertime meals ahead. And by the way, if you want to take over the Feedfeed Snapchat, just send them a snap. Bye guys, thanks.